today's matchup. It'll be where we play. We'll have the map ban system here for you. We can get that underway and see where these two teams are going to go. Now, BootKamp seems to be quite comfortable on a lot of the pretty standard maps. Border is one of their most played maps this season. Yep. Oregon is one of their best maps as well, statistically. I would say that Ninjas in Pyjamas has usually a pretty robust map pool, but they haven't really been doing well anywhere in any of the maps so far this season. So, I mean, where are they going to wind up? They ban Consulate. BootKamp takes out Clubhouse. You know, we've got Coastline and Border both banned. Border is one of NIP's most played maps as well. Yeah. You've got Oregon still on that board here, but NIP is going to take it out because BootKamp played so well on Oregon. I believe it was against FaZe earlier in the season. And Villa, of course, is usually always the bridesmaid but never the bride when it comes to bans. And that'll leave us with Bank, which happens to be a very interesting map for NIP.
Yeah, this is going to be, interesting is a great word to use to describe it. I think it's doable, but the way they've been playing, I'm not so sure.
I mean, you look at NIP. They're a good team. They beat Fnatic on Bank, if I recall correctly, in the 6 major, but then lost it to EG. I can't remember if they played it more than that, but I do recall that they beat Fnatic on it and then lost to EG in the quarters on it. I know that much. But NIP tends to play this so well in terms of how they roam that it's very difficult. You know, we talk about this routinely. One of NIP's greatest assets is their roam game. Their ability to win fights, their ability to take those 1v1s, etc. And Bank is a map that suits that quite well. You know, it's a very roam-friendly map. It's huge. And if your team isn't coordinated enough to pinch roamers, it's going to be a major problem for you for those 5 defensive rounds.
I remember talking about exactly this, though, last time we saw Ninjas in Pyjamas go to Bank, and it was the first week of the second half against Black Dragons, and we theorized that the NIP roamers were going to be able to do a lot of work, as we expect them to be able. That's what they do. They're great at their roamers. But they got shut out 6-1.
They got crushed.
Absolutely destroyed. And that, you know, the theory crafting going into it would, you know, speak to quite the opposite. But who knows? What do you think? Who's going to win this match? Why don't you tell us? We'll bring up the community vote right now. And you can go ahead and show us your opinion.
Undeterred here from the stats. They're going to say that it's going to go to NIP, despite the likelihood that it probably shouldn't statistically, but 72 to 20% with only an 8% draw rate. Now, I think it's safe to say heading into this that if NIP draws, that's probably a loss for them, given how few days are left.
Yeah, they definitely need to be getting wins right now at this point, especially against opponents like BootKamp. BootKamp has been doing better in this season, certainly, but they're still only in 6th place. And that's the lowest hanging fruit you're going to be getting moving forward. So you need to seize this opportunity, especially.
Yeah, they already played Black Dragons, which is the only other team that is close in proximity to them.
Yeah.
They lost. BootKamp Gaming lost to Black Dragons last week, though. So, I mean, this is a good opportunity for NIP to be able to strike back. And for BootKamp, the motivation here is that, yeah, you know, you've got Black Dragons and NIP who don't have the easiest schedule for the next 3 weeks. But you're still worried about that relegation spot. Whether it's 8th or not, you still don't want to finish in 7th and have to be put in a position where you defend your stake in Pro League against one of the 2 Challenger League teams.
I mean, you can make it work from 7th place. The scariest thing is 8th place. You just don't want to get that auto relegation. You don't want to be booted out without being able to fight for it. So that's what NIP have to do today and every play day moving forward. They need to really fight for it because, oh boy, the window is closing so rapidly. And you know, the crazy thing is we see all these big names on Ninjas in Pyjamas, like Julio, Psycho, PZD, Kamikaze Walk, all of them, you know, really staple players in the Latin American region. And I wouldn't know what to think if they were to suddenly not be in Pro League. It's the same thing we had in the last season with ENCE. We were looking at ENCE from the European region. One of the biggest teams in all of Rainbow Six. They had been to every single LAN leading up to being relegated out of Pro League, and everyone was just thinking to themselves, wow, that's, you know, it's weird to see European Pro League without ENCE, and it would be weird to see Latin American Pro League without Ninjas in Pyjamas.
Did the same thing in North America with CLG.
CLG, yeah, exactly.
When they were known as Elevate before getting picked up by Counter Logic, they finished 2nd overall. They won the Invitational, for crying out loud, on Xbox, and then they come over and then they have a bit of an unceremonious exit here. And I mean, the same thing applies with NIP, you know. a huge team with tons of accolades, tons of success, and
and the thing is, while Ents did lose some players on their fall, they, stayed together. They retained themselves as a team, and they are looking really strong right now in Challenger League, working their way towards potentially getting into the next season if they do well enough, and I think it's a real possibility. Whereas CLG, they all broke apart and started moving to other places, other teams, and kind of just phased into the rest of North America. The question lingers, whichever team gets relegated from Latin America, or all of the regions for that matter, are they going to stick together? Are they going to grind for another season in Challenger League? Or are they just going to disperse and find new homes? And that's a very real thing, because in the past, these seasons, they used to be 3 months long. And it wasn't a really big deal. You miss a season,
right.
Okay, it's a time for a break. You practice, you come back. Now they're 6 months long, half a year. You have to have serious patience to grind through Challenger League and then make it into the next season. It's dedication if you're going to be able to pull that off.
And keep in mind that for that 6 month season, that's 6 months of Pro League. It's not even 6 months of Challenger League.
Right.
Challenger League has 3 months off after the season ends. And that's when you see the round robins and all that to pick the teams that get in. And then you have 3 months of a season. So this would be, you not only, and this doesn't just apply to NIP, this applies to every possible team. It applies to, to Black Dragons, and it applies to the teams in North America, EU as well. But you basically have, when you get relegated, you have 3 months of licking your wounds.
Yeah.
And that's about it. And then you wait and you hope that in 3 months' time when Challenger League starts, you tend to be on the top. Hence, for all their faults in Pro League, they've been grinding. And yeah, they sit in one of the top 2 spots right now.
Yeah.
But the question is, with every single team on every single region, does that happen to them as well?
Another thing on Ents' note in particular is that the European Challenger League is one of the most competitive that we've been seeing. And you've got Empire in there that are looking really strong right now, and currently I believe in first.
I believe so, yeah.
But all that said, well, those 3 months of downtime, or rather, you still have the freedom of being able to scrim against any team at that point, because people are thinking to themselves, okay, you're not even in Challenger League right now technically because it's not being played, so that makes you a really viable scrim partner to experiment with. But at the same time, that requires a serious dedication to just suck it up and practice with no ongoing league for you to play in.
You can make possible roster changes. Ents, made 2 roster changes. Shate earlier on jumped over to the team at the time was known as Penta, now is G2. Shate decided to step back from the team in competitive gaming in general, so then, they picked up Kanto from Ents as well. So they had to make those 2 roster changes, picking up both Bloss and Gumphy. So there was Ents taking the time. Sort of it was forced, I don't think they anticipated losing 2 players early on, but at the end of the day, you made those roster changes. Panari leaves, you get Shate leaving, you get Kanto leaving, you picked up Uno earlier on, to replace Shate, and then you pick up both Gomfi and Bloss, and you have a competitive team now. And yeah, like you said, EU Challenger League is, I would say, by far and away the most competitive. But Latin America Challenger League's not that far behind. I mean, keep in mind that last season, you saw Red Cannons got relegated to Red Devils, who became Black Dragons. Yeah, came perilously close to also getting relegated. So there's no real guarantee here for the team that finishes in 7th, whether it's Black Dragons, whether it's NIP, whether it's BootKamp Gaming, whether it's Pain, too, if Pain falls far enough, that you're going to be able to hold on.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be really interesting once we hit the end of this season and teams start getting auto-relegated, start getting thrown into those relegation matches to decide whether or not they're going to be staying in Pro League or going back down to Challenger League. What's going to happen to those rosters once that transition comes into play, and who's going to stick to the daunting task of grind through Challenger League for a season and then get back in if you can.
Yeah, and like we said, every single member of CLG in North America broke apart, and they're all back in Pro League now. You've got every single player that was active on CLG when they got relegated is back. So what ends up happening here with a team, if it is NIP, let's speculate, it is NIP, players that have been around for ages, players that are extremely high caliber, do they stick together? Do they continue on? Do they forge forward? Same thing applies to Black Dragons if they get relegated. Same thing applies to BootKamp. BootKamp has looked better since picking up Paula.
Yeah.
And now that they've added Boar to that roster, a couple weeks back, they're still, I think, trying to probably patch together how you deal with a new member of this team. And let's focus on BootKamp for a second, and especially in this matchup. Paula is one of Brazil's strongest entry fraggers, playing usually on a 3-speed. He'll get droned in quite well. You know, there's usually a time where he'll have 2, possibly 3 drone experts. If there's a map where you need to test your entry, it's gonna be on Bank, especially when you see Nip playing these wonky roam strats with Vigil and Alibi, being able to move all around the map. That's going to be something for BootKamp to really focus on, because we haven't seen BootKamp play Bank this season yet. At least not in Pro League. So what ends up happening here?
Well, I think it's going to come down to the study that BootKamp will have very likely done on Ninjas in Pyjamas, figuring out how those roamers work. Again, the last time we saw this played by Nip, they were shut out of their roam game entirely by Black Dragons, and it was a 6-1 in Black Dragons' favor. So, as we load into the match, it's going to be on BootKamp to have done their homework, realize how Nip play this, and counter it directly. Banfei is going to start up here. Ninjas in Pyjamas first, since they are on defense, and BootKamp will go second. Lion being banned immediately. Not a huge surprise. We saw earlier he has, about, if I'm not mistaken, a 50 or thereabouts % ban rate, which is pretty substantial.
Yeah, that's enormous. Not really much of a surprise. He's a particular menace. And on a map like Bank, which is one of the largest in the rotation, I think the only map that might be bigger is Villa, but we'd need actual floor plans to see that. Bank,
Maybe.
I think Villa might be. I mean, like I said, you'd really need to see here. But Lion is going to pin you down and not be a lot of fun to deal with. You've already got teams that will run Jackal quite effectively.
Yeah.
She's not the strongest operator here, but you see teams will trot out Dokkaebi from time to time as well. And if you're not a precise team with entry, you get a lot less value off of Dokkaebi, I find, because teams tend to use her on Bank as a way to find roamers rather than a way to push the site and lock everybody down. It's already tough for roamers out here, and I like that you mentioned that they got shut out by Black Dragons, because in that Black Dragons matchup, the only round that Nip won was on defense, but they lost the next 4 on Bank, and that was one of their strongest assets, was their ability to evade their opponents on Bank. We'll see what happens here. The other bans were Ying, Clash, and Echo, by the way.
And speaking of strongest assets, they will be able to defend first, and somewhat interesting, they're going to go to CEO as the first bomb site, which I honestly don't, I kind of appreciate. We've seen a lot of teams going to the more open sites instead of the basement, and giving them a little bit of a leg up over their opponents early on. Often you can get some free bad operator picks out of the attack, like a Thermite, for example. Right now, M-King on that Thermite. He's not going to be very useful while attacking the top floor unless you choose to come from the skylight. And in most cases, if you simply come from the skylight, you're going to be bottlenecked in pretty easily by your opponents. Something that I'm sure Ninjas in Pyjamas will be playing around. Also important to note is PZD will have impacts to potentially impact Trick, which is being prepped right now by Wog, as you can see opening up above the wall. He will deny any Thermite charges being used on that wall if the right situation is presented.
One thing of note here is that Glaz is unbanned. Now, Glaz is really tough, really tough to deal with here on Bank in particular. But in addition to that, you also have Psycho on Nip, who happens to be probably one of the best Glazes in the world, I would say. There's a reason why Ninjas in Pyjamas chose for their first skin to be on Glaz's sniper rifle.
Yep.
So you've got the ability now for Psycho to be able to use that Glaz so effectively on this map. But also you have it open for BootKamp to take if they want to run one. If you look at Nip's lineup, usually for CEO, it's very standard to bring 1 to 2 ACOGs here and have somebody play the top of those stairs to look out towards parking garage and lobby. The only ACOG they've got available for them is going to be Maestro on WOG. So they don't look like they set up the typical way that we see a lot on CEO outside of the Mira Castle strat, which is pretty commonplace.
Yeah, you want to be able to challenge the long angles, but it doesn't look like that's a huge focus for Ninjas in Pyjamas. They obviously brought that castle, likely in an attempt to deny the angles altogether, which is also a viable solution, though a little bit dangerous because it leaves your defense in the hands of your opponent and the tools that they have brought. Now, Paula will drone out PZD, So good information here. The castle being detected, and he's just very wary of those north windows. The Dokkaebi, using the phone call, is going to give away the castle's position, but it looks like he impacts the wrong wall. I'm not sure what just happened there. Not checking before throwing his impact, it seemed. And I don't believe he's going to deny anything.
No, it certainly sounded like that wall got opened up. So that's a bit of an oops moment for NiP when they had the utility to stop that. And of course, a big kill there from PZD, though, will at least shut down Paula, who, as I mentioned, was typically a pretty formidable entry player. He was just repelled up on as Jackal on that window, very exposed, very vulnerable, and 2 of the 4 smokes that are available for BootKamp are gone. The next are in the hands of Boar on Dokkaebi. Kamikaze takes out M-King, so BootKamp has lost 2 in the early going. And Intact takes a little bit of damage and will also lose the fight to PZD. This is a great start here from NiP, but there's still a minute to go.
Yeah, they have completely shut down this take from BootKamp so far. And there's still 2, like you say, but it's not a lot to work with. And they will get the first kill for their team in this match. Psycho going down, getting a little too aggressive, and that's something that it looks like the entirety of NiP is keen to do. Get too aggressive as they attempt to peek every angle. Duds vying for an easy kill, just holding the angle into Meeting Hall, waiting for any potential free frags to walk into his crosshair. And Boar, as he continues to try and peek this skylight, is not in a great spot. Wag from still inside an elevator will get a kill, and PZD gets the final one onto Boar. Great round from the castle, dropping a 3K to start us off.
See those phone calls being used exactly as I'd mentioned early on. Use them to try and pinch where the roamers are, but that was a pretty stalwart defense. There wasn't a lot of map control that was held by NiP, and I think they read into CEO quite well, and they realized that they really only needed 1 player off-site. It was the Valkyrie that was playing below, if I remember correctly. The other 4 were all pretty tight around the site, which makes it problematic for BootKamp to entry effectively. You saw 0 value from the 4 smokes that were brought with Paula dying early, Boar being left as Dokkaebi to try to get off the 2 smoke grenades, but who are you going to cover at that point? So, interestingly enough, a big opening round from NiP there, and they looked pretty good in the process. You know, they only lost 1 body. That was the impactless frag that was dropped by BKG.
Yeah. I mean, the defense overall was well set up from NiP, but I have to fault BootKamp's attack as well. The way that they tried to attack from the main lobby was a little bit confusing. They pushed 2 people main lobby. They didn't have enough tools to deal with the simple elevator hold that NiP was employing. And then they attempted to forgo it just by pushing Banana, which left them vulnerable to reception. Very dangerous move, and it ended up, of course, backfiring and costing the life of one of their players. Meanwhile, the repel on North Windows was just 1 guy and little to no pressure being applied, and they were attacking from Skylight. BootKamp was choosing to attack from every possible avenue with such a light force that they spread themselves thin, no potential for refrags, and because of that, there was almost no chance in winning the round.
And the other thing, too, was that Paula, who is usually that powerful force and somebody that BootKamp relies upon to break open the round for them and kind of quarterback their play, not just was on repel all by himself, but he was droning himself in.
Yeah.
You know, you saw the castle of PZD playing very aggressively around that window, and yeah, maybe playing on repel is not the most comfortable way for a lot of players to play, but if you have somebody else droning for him, it's a potential kill. An early loss of an Evil Eye cam there, a bit sloppy from NiP. They just really gave that Maestro cam for nothing, but here's something else that's a little unordinary. NiP's secondary site is open area.
Yeah, this is a really weird sight to see as a secondary, or at all for that matter. I have to quickly give praise to Paula for his clean mechanics and taking care of that Evil Eye, but he will lose the fight against PZD before Duds is able to refrag, and the Vigil will go down. Psycho playing a very long angle from the main stairs into Tellers, and he's looking to get any potential frags on the entry, supporting his teammate of Kamikaze. Now, interesting that both of those 2 players are holding the same angle, some potential ground loss there, but they have great information thanks to the Valkyrie cams in that main lobby. They're just going to call out as much as they can as the attackers continue to push their way into Tellers.
Telltale sign of the para going off in the background there. I'm interested to see what they're able to make with this Capitao here. As Wog finds duds, that's one hard breacher off the board. The Hibana is down. Boar inside of Tellers. A good angle towards that admin office wall, but there's really no prey there. Wog is on the other side of it, but it's very interesting to see what he'll be able to come out here. And Tactum takes a shot onto Julio, and the C4 will fly out. Wog takes out M-King, gets very aggressive, and now Intact will have to come back down. Kamikaze dispatch from that SMG-12 of Boar will put us at a 2v2. Intact does hold the diffuser. He could possibly catch Wog looking here as he stands just outside of the double doors by open area, but it's going to be a rotate now from BootKamp. They're going to try to get closer to the site. Psycho's in great position to greet them, playing on those stairs. At any point, he could possibly pop up and take Intacticum. But they've lost possession of those cams. Psycho there on the stairs, takes out Intact, looks for a second. He's going to miss Boar, and now Boar's going to get very aggressive here. The SMG-12 actually manages to hit its targets, Michael. But Wog with full control. 15 seconds left. He's got a mirror window staring at the double doorway. Smoke's going to get tossed in here from the Dokkaebi, fearing that it might be a flashbang. Wog looks away. Plant goes down, trying to make tons of noise and bait the Dokkaebi off the plant. All he needs to do is catch the Dokkaebi mid-plant. And here we go. Wog needs to storm in, knowing that time is on his side. If Boar falls off, BK loses anyway. So he's going to stick the landing, and Wog gets credited with the kill. 2 in a row for Ninjas in Pyjamas.
Beautiful mechanics play there from Wog, faking out the rush from the mirror window, just running into the wall. And now Ninjas in Pyjamas find themselves in a 2-0 lead. Looking strong. That attack from BootKamp was just as one-dimensional as their first was incredibly spread thin. So, yeah, sure, a shift in gears from BootKamp, but somehow it didn't change the outcome. There's a fine balance to be found in terms of where you place your players, how you attack a site, and what kind of angles and crossfires you're trying to establish, and what kind of manpower you're applying to that those angles. Usually, you want to see maybe 2 pushes coming out. For example, in this case, you want to clear Tellers and Archives, which is adjacent to the site. Good idea. Come from the main lobby, yes, as you did, but also maybe apply some pressure from the skylight. And the reason you do that is so you can cut off any potential rotation through it for Ninjas in Pyjamas, which we did see them using because it was available to them. They were rotating pretty liberally through all of the potential avenues, including the top floor, the bottom floor, skylight, the rotations they had established between Archives and small office. You need to work out a way where you can cut these things off so that you can potentially get free kills or just deny support of one defender to another and give it into your team instead. But it's just not happening here for BootKamp.
I like that you pointed that out, and I think it's worth pointing out here as well. Third site is going to be Tellers Archives. No CCTV, which is a little surprising. It was the only site that we saw Ninjas in Pyjamas prevail on when they played this map against Black Dragons. And they're going to decide to forego that. I don't know if they're possibly going to keep it for maybe a 4th site, but after this, CEO is going to open back up. Maybe Nip anticipates that there will have been some reading into the CEO hold, but I'm not entirely certain.
It does look like Ninjas in Pyjamas are trying to reinvent themselves here. We've seen a number of teams going towards the end of the season where they start to struggle. They think to themselves, all right, we need to just go at our strategy all anew. And that seems to be the mindset here for Nip.
Julio and the rest of his team were able to do a great job of stopping 1 round of Xkaros on that Mira, but unfortunately they will miss out on all but 1 the second time. As you can see from Duds, he's used up all of his Xkaros. Now, he did get the 1 Mira that was inside of that Teller's wall, which is good. It's going to force Nip to have to play very far back, and in fact, it's actually going to hinder the fact that they've also got that soft wall between both Tellers and Archives there, too.
There's still the thermite, but as you said, Ninjas in Pyjamas did not seem to reinforce many of these walls, leaving soft destruction in the most important role.
Now here's something that often gets overlooked. As Julio knew he was losing control of that black mirror, he shot out the soft wall inside of Tellers that leads to the stairs, and he also shot out a hole above the 1 doorway that leads towards that wall. So the Legion of PZD playing above can continuously drop goo mines down there and hold control from the top.
And Wog can play from these main stairs through that open wall and deny the push in through Teller's door. So there's a great duo stacked up on the same doorway here to deny any potential pushes. And there's lots of information thanks to the Legion. First Okabe phone call going to come out along with some smoke. C4 from Psycho will miss, which is really bad use of utility. It's going to allow the attackers to potentially plant that diffuser. Second C4 from Julio is also going to miss, but Psycho and Kamikaze both get their own kills. So the entry denied on the initial wave.
I don't know if there's some possible ADS tricking that's going on here, but keep in mind with the smokes on the board for BootKamp, there's possibly 6 smokes, 4 of which you can stop, 2 of which you can't as Capitao. There's still another ADS available for Nip. They can sit this down in the latter round if they think that they've burned through all the utility. Oh, Duds misses a shot, and Wog will be there to capitalize. Great play from the Maestro. Here come Intact's push, but he's going to get pushed out from Kamikaze as from above. PZD still reigns supreme. BootKamp gets shut out on this round, and Nip will put 3 in a row together. I gotta say, this powerful entry that we've seen from BootKamp is missing so far. But more importantly, the loose roam that we're used to seeing from Nip, very restrained, and it's working. It's working really well.
Yeah, and on the note of BootKamp, not only is their powerful entry missing, but they seemed almost harmless in that last round. No exaggeration. They didn't really do anything. They walked into the main lobby, and it took them a decent chunk of time. They made it into the main lobby, and then as soon as they started getting into any fight, they just one by one fell. So that was a really decisive round for Ninjas of Pyjamas, not only because they're setting themselves up very well. I really like their hold. The holes above the Teller's doorway and on the top floor. The fact that it's not being hunted down by BootKamp. None of the BootKamp attackers are trying to clear out that top floor and deny that. The holes from the main stairs towards the Teller's doors as well. The fact that that's not being attended to. I mean, we even saw Habana peek in through the elevator hallway, hold the angle, and then lose the fight because I guess he wasn't expecting somebody to be coming from the lower stairs. Really confusing right now from BootKamp, and really solid from Ninjas of Pyjamas.
And BootKamp's only been able to put together 5 kills so far over 3 rounds, which, you know, not to be too harsh on BootKamp, but that's a pretty disheartening amount of kills. And I mean,
it's not great.
We say kills don't matter, but I mean, you're not going to win rounds if you've put 5 kills together over the 3 rounds.
I'll tell you a secret, Parker. If you kill the entire enemy team in a round, then you win the round.
I never knew that.
Yeah. So, while kills aren't the most important thing, they can also accomplish victory.
It's sage life advice.
Yeah.
But I mean, more so than anything, BootKamp don't seem to be playing to their strengths here. Now, I don't know if it's because of the fact that they're not comfortable playing on this map. You know, like we said, in order to go back, and I looked this up, the last time that BootKamp played Bank, if you go back to DreamHack Montreal, which BootKamp was a part of, if you go back through the current season and the last season of BR6, the last time that BootKamp Gaming played this map in an official match, unless I'm incorrect, was one of the first weeks of Season 7 against Team 1. And it was only played in the rematch afterwards. Julio will find his first kill with a beautiful Hail Mary toss to Duds. That was extra long range through the opening in the back wall of CEO, and he's going to take out the Ash of Duds, so at least it's a low priority operator, but still a pretty potent fragging machine off the board.
Yeah, and a free kill is a free kill. The utility expended there, not going to matter that much. PZD eating some damage as he attempts to impact trick the wall. Can't quite tell if he was successful, but I doubt it. Looked almost like he missed. And from the north windows, he is being pressured pretty heavily. Looks like that wall has been opened up, which is going to prompt Wog to play it from a long angle. But he's still worried about the north windows, rightfully so.
That was great playing from BootKamp there. They were on the rappel on the window to pressure what they knew was going to be coming as an impact trick, but Intact will say so long farewell. The Hibana gets pulverized by Wog, playing and hugging that bomb, waiting to see. M. King, who's got the open line of sight through through both of those CEO walls. 2 successful exothermic charges go off. It'll fell PZD, the castle playing over by Banana, and they'll need to get picked up as there goes the other logic bomb. M-King does get his kill on the PZD, but Wog, who's been top fragging so far, will pick up a double this round.
Yeah, he's looking really lethal still. Has lost a lot of HP though. Only 2 remaining attackers, and one's going to push into the main hallway. That's Boar, gets a kill. M-King gets one before being shut down, but Julio with an excellent push, managing to get 3 in the round and 2 in the final couple seconds. Great positioning here from the mirror. There was a smoke in that position to obscure vision. Just the final kill cam will not have it there.
Yeah, you don't get to see the smokes afterwards, so sometimes kill cams can be a little deceiving. You can think, oh, how did they miss those shots? How do you not know he was there? Well, because there was a smoke in the way.
Yeah. So, overall, that round mechanically looked pretty solid from BootKamp. The attack was well constructed, and they, for the first time, established a crossfire on their target without stretching their forces thin. So props to them for that. The problem was, once they opened up walls, before they opened up walls, all throughout the entire round, one by one, they were losing man after man after man to Ninjas of Pyjamas who were just trying to poke a sharp stick in their attack. And it worked. The C4 to start things off from Julio. The follow-up from Wog as soon as the wall was opened. Despite missing impact tricks, you know, despite all these problems for the defense of Ninjas of Pyjamas, they're just winning their fights. And sometimes simply that's all you really need to win.
Yeah, I think that was the best round mechanically that we've seen from BootKamp, as you said. Very well constructed. They tried to hold the crossfire onto the castle to deny the impact trick. Now, both times it looks like PZD has been throwing his impacts too high. It looks like they've just been missing the wall. That is likely the culprit as to why Nip is able to continuously give up that CEO wall. But the final round here for Nip, we transition back downstairs to open area. So this has been the same cycle that Nip has been running. BootKamp puts together a pretty good round. They come very, very close to taking that one away from Nip. Nip has pretty firmly been in the driver's seat. They're looking to shut out BootKamp here on the defense and guarantee at least 1 point. They'll go back to open area. Now, we don't really see a lot of open area all that much, and I think a big part of that is Mira being banned. Of course, she's unbanned here, along with Maestro and Castle. Castle not being run on an open area hold is okay, as long as you set up the site to your liking, but you gotta have the Mira, and that's exactly what we see from Nip. So, BootKamp throwing Paula onto Ash, obviously realize they need to get something going to kickstart this offense, and could this be it?
Yeah, and they're also going to be, oh no, Julio. With a pre-play C4 in tandem with Kamikaze's cameras, will get a free early kill.
And Julio now putting together 4 kills in a round and a minute's worth of time, as he was the only member of Nip that had yet to find that scoreboard. What a good time for him to be able to do that.
Impact frags, the name of the game. And Julio looking very strong in that respect. Now, BootKamp seemingly aware of what they needed to do the last time they attacked this open area, and that's take control of Skylight. But they've also lost their push from the main lobby, which means that Ninja Pyjamas now can maneuver based around the main lobby. So there's no lockout here from BootKamp, and they've already lost early manpower, which makes any potential lockout even harder.
It's amazing that Nip isn't really roaming right now, because we've seen from BootKamp they really haven't been taking vertical control. They haven't been putting a buck or a sledge above. They haven't really been bringing any major credible soft destruction. They've been doubling up on the hard breachers, yes, but finally BootKamp are going to run a bevy of soft destructors. You've got Zofia, you've got Sledge, you've got Ash. Excellent opportunity, but they're not even necessarily going to use it. You see that M-King is going to do some roam clearing of his own. The Thermite getting quite aggressive, takes out the Valkyrie, and now they've managed to dislodge 1 player, but a second will tag in, and PZD taking out the Thermite, and Nip will regain their advantage.
Very confusing. BootKamp trying to take Skylight, but nobody's droning Archives. Intact is going to take out Psycho, so it stays nice and even. Still winnable for BootKamp. However, positional advantage definitely in favor of Nip, as well as the time as we come down to the last 30 seconds. Wog, though, as I say that, throws himself away up the main stairs. Julio will refrag. PZD trying to catch these last two attackers off guard. He potentially could, but the drone is going to actually spot him out as he now is forced to rotate back into the site. All they need to do is deny for a few more seconds in this round. PZD in a good position to do that. Julio going to be the hard anchor who needs to hold on, but bad timing. He will still put some bullets into the Habana as he pushes into the room, but Intact is able to get the kill. From behind, though, PZT will shut him down, and the diffuser cannot be planted. Ninjas in Pyjamas end the half, 5-0.
I am astonished that that wasn't a headshot onto the Hibana, for the record. She pushed in towards the staff area. Certainly looked like it should have been from the Vector there, but it's always hard to tell.
That Vector is now a little bit erratic with its recoil pattern after the last update, so it stands to reason that it would maybe it was just a little over the head.
What a remarkable round from Nip there, though, and it wins solely because the fact that PZD was able to get undiscovered. They knew he was inside for a brief period of time. They knew he was inside of Archives. That's where he was able to get the kill onto M-King on the Thermite. And then I'm a little puzzled at what happened next. Both members of BootKamp decided to run upstairs. I don't know if they cleared upstairs and then ran right back down, but you saw Julio controlling those hatches. Neither of them used the hatch. It didn't look like. It looked like they just simply ran back down and pushed into the site. I don't know what the call which was made from BootKamp to go upstairs, but it didn't look like it was very effective at all.
So there's a couple things for me on that attack that are confusing for BootKamp. First of all, a big part of attacking open area, or any first floor site for that matter, is taking the top floor. Then you open up vertical control, use the drop downs, as you were discussing just now. Second of all, if you're going to take Skylight, one of the first things you need to drone Archives. And yes, we did see the kill from M-King into Archives to start the round off. Sure. But he didn't get that based off information gathered from his teammates. He got it because he was playing an angle and he got lucky and someone peeked into it. There was a follow-up from PZD who killed him then. So you need to have control of Archives if you want to push Skylight. You need to have Skylight if you want to push into Kitchen. And you need to use the top floor if you want to pressure the defenders in any way other than that exact push. And that's an easy thing to accomplish. But BootKamp just kind of pushed their way into Skylight and lingered, and then started exchanging kills. And not a strategy.
And you had the Thermite, who possibly could have thermited the wall into staff area. Not opt to do that. Instead, that wall remains reinforced the entire time, and then M-King goes frag chasing.
And you know why? It's because there was not enough information coverage. They didn't drone anything out. All that said, though, first half done. BootKamp now are on defense.
They're going to start an open area, so we haven't actually seen the basement site here of Bank, which is a little confusing. That's typically one of the first sites that teams will go to. So, I mean, it's definitely intriguing, but all these teams, they're making it work so far. The defense has a 100% win ratio. It will need to stay that way, for the record, in order for Ninjas in Pyjamas to not win this matchup. They've guaranteed themselves 1 point, which is huge and critical at the current stage in the standings, but are they going to be able to get the other one here?
If Ninjas in Pyjamas can show us even a modicum of the ferocity they had on defense now on attack, they will certainly be able to take this match in the next 5 rounds. Meanwhile, BootKamp have got to really wake up. Now, important to remember, Psycho cannot open this castle barricade. He can still make holes in it, but he cannot open it entirely using the Glaz DMR. So he's just going to be looking for a kill, and he will just narrowly not get it onto M-King, who eats 1 bullet and then finally dies to Julio. Will be the one to execute that strategy. Kamikaze gets the 2nd kill for Ninjas in Pyjamas, and already BootKamp looking like this is going to be a 6-0.
That was a tremendous bait right there. You saw that PZD had been down, so we saw M-King push out to try and secure that kill, but got punished, and that was Nip reading into that. Intact will pick up BootKamp's first frag. It'll be on to Kamikaze, that Hibana, who was playing right by Tellers. Duds still on her own, lost quite a bit of damage, but playing aggressively towards the site. He'll get into Archives and just await a possible push from Nip, and he'll get it. He won't be ready for it. Wog will get that kill, and Nip is only 2 away from a 6-0. What a triumphant comeback for Nip after a bad stretch here. Intact trying to play tight against the wall, but can't land the shots he needs. PZD had been picked up a number of minutes ago, or a minute ago rather, and the Ash is back in the equation, but there's still plant denial. You've got a smoke here, you've got a nitro cell from Boar. It's still very winnable from BootKamp. Psycho looks in, doesn't check his corners. C4 goes out. Boar will find nothing. Intact, able to double up. It's 2-2. PZD gets the kill, plant going down. All they need to do is stop it. Intact will get the kill, but PZD will need to work against the time. He sees the smoke, Intact with the clutch, and BK will win the round. What a huge effort from the smoke. Diffuser deftly handled, and BootKamp will take their first round on defense.
Intact, the hero that BootKamp needs, managing to just narrowly eke out a round. And while it was a great performance from him, BootKamp, they played that pretty poorly. Their setup was standard, and it was working for a bit, but Ninjas in Pyjamas were able to just kind of hammer and anvil it and easily start picking apart the BootKamp roamers one by one. They did a good job of droning out and executing onto Teller's archives, despite Glaz not being able to open up those castle barricades by himself, other than just meleeing them. He did do damage through them. He did apply pressure through them. He could not progress, but he could distress the roamers on the other side. Now, Locker's CCTV finally going to be played here. BootKamp going to be the ones to bring us there. And as you talked about, this is usually the #1 site where most teams will go first, but it has taken us now 7 rounds to get here, which is just a little bit weird. I guess, you know, you can't really fault Ninjas in Pyjamas for not going to the bottom floor, considering they won all of their defenses. It's just odd.
Yeah, I mean, it is very confusing here. I mean, NiP is going to bring the exact same lineup, so presumably they expected BootKamp to go to CCTV. I mean, there's so little data on BootKamp on this map that how do you effectively counter-strat it outside of possible scrim reports, right? And even then, I mean, if teams are talking, you know, about their scrims, well, then you're leaking some pretty confidential information there. I believe the Portuguese Spectator was trying to draw attention to the spread on BootKamp's team right now, and Paula, who is typically the player who's going to be landing all of those kills, he has 0 for the time being. So BootKamp are certainly going to hope that he wakes up here in order to close this gap, because the game is still within hand. It's not slipped away just yet, but NiP is still sitting on match point, and that's not going to change until we get to the 10th round, when it could possibly end in a draw.
Yeah, bringing up Paul is actually really important, because the fact that such a prominent fragger has no kills means that, yes, he's having a bad match thus far, but it also means he can wake up. And if he does start getting those kills, if he maybe starts dropping 2 a round or 3 a round or just clutching, then that could be enough for the gas to really come back into BootKamp's engine. We'll see. I don't know if he's going to be able to make it happen in time. Again, the fact that they now need to win 4 in a row, still a daunting task. Julio going to use that Jackal tracker to detect the Jaeger. Force Duds to play in the safest spot available to the defense. And he'll just have to wait out that Jackal track.
You got Boar in the position as well as Pulse to just continuously give the information that's needed, playing inside of gold, just patiently waiting, likely telling the C4 player that's inside of the red stretch. That's where MKing is currently seated. Hey, you can sail an explosive on over and maybe get the kill that you are looking for. The big question is going to be, what coverage are they going to use the glass for on NiP's side of the coin? Typically, a team will open up one of those soft walls and just use it to try and dare one of the members of the defense to push in, but this could possibly be a major deal breaker for BootKamp. They'll lose the mirror inside of red as well. That is bad news for MK.
Excellent setup from BootKamp, being well countered by Ninjas in Pyjamas, and now they're going to start with their first layer of smoke. Boar still inside a vault means he can call the C4 for MKing, as you touched on earlier, which is a huge component of the BootKamp defense, but it's made difficult because of the smoke, glass combination, and the fact that the mirror window is gone. Cycle not able to get the initial angle onto his opponent since that Mira is prone. C4 still in hand, it needs to sail now. Pulse has to be calling it, but it's a fake out. and Boar is giving that information to his teammate. The flashbangs are going to disorient M-King, but not the smoke of Intact, who's going to be able to use those canisters to delay. C4 finally coming out from M-King, well placed on Tawag, and Ninjas in Pyjamas now find themselves in a bit of a pickle as they're running low on smokes and time. M-King able to get PZD as well, so that's 2 for him. Paulo takes out Kamikaze, but the diffuser has been planted. Julio still has control from above. He could deny this push, and he will do so initially onto Boar. Cycle in a great position as well inside of the server stack. He's not being pressured very heavily right now. Because the top floor is still in the attacker's favor, despite the man count advantage in BootKamp's favor, this is still winnable for Ninjas in Pyjamas. Psycho playing the long angles, trying to apply as much pressure as possible. From behind, Julio drops, but cannot make anything work, and Psycho will be downed. A retake from BootKamp, and they will stay alive.
It was a very winnable position for Nip there. I mean, BootKamp had the bodies to go up and pressure Julio from above. I'm very confused as to why Julio bothered to drop at that exact position, though. He had everything going in his favor. I don't know if Psycho was calling for it or not, but if you have Julio stay up there, he has really good coverage over that diffuser. I don't know exactly what the thought process was behind getting that Jackal's boots on the ground when you have control on that hatch above. Maybe it was a call from somebody in Nip, but overall, that was a pretty big mistake from Nip there. And I mean, BootKamp played it well. It was a 4v2. They were, Julio was very susceptible to getting pushed from above. Maybe that's why he dropped. Maybe he thought there was going to be presence up there. When it's a 4v2 and you have to worry about hatch control, Julio can't watch flank and watch the hatch at the same time. So you can commit a body because you have that numbers advantage to dealing with Julio. And even if you lose that fight, you still buy time in a 3v1 to take on Psycho as the Glaz and possibly win and then get the defuse.
We did see a defender rush to the very top floor to try and flank Julio, who was playing in middle floor. So I have to imagine that those top floor drop downs were opened up. Because of that, Julio thought it would be better to try and do some damage to support his teammate and server. Either way, it was the wrong decision though, and because of that, BootKamp were able to sustain themselves just a little bit longer. Ninjas in Pyjamas, though, only need to win 1 round. Still. Yeah, it's that's going to be the conversation for every single round moving forward. Without fail, if Ninjas in Pyjamas win, it's over. And BootKamp are fighting up against that. They've been looking pretty good on defense thus far. Not quite as solid as Ninjas in Pyjamas were when they were on defense. And another thing, Ninjas in Pyjamas' attacks have been looking pretty good. While they did lose that last one, they dealt with the mirror window well. They dealt with the evil eyes well. They denied a lot of the angles using smokes. They faked out a lot of counter plant utility. They did all of the steps properly. They ultimately lost too much manpower in their push, but it was a good attack.
The mirror that was being played from BootKamp was prone inside a red with a soft wall in front of them.
Yep.
Psycho could have very easily shot open that whole wall as Glaz and given himself a great window and forced the mirror back, but he didn't do that. He held fire.
If he just vaulted onto the little desk in server, he had the angle and the kill. So it was unfortunate that he didn't do that, but of course he could not have possibly been aware of the exact location of the Mira, and it's hard to get a drone that deep into sight, especially when you're trying to play to fake out utility, but still.
Right, but it's a safe bet. There's going to be somebody playing in there.
It is a safe bet. I'm trying to give him the benefit. He played a pretty good round apart from that.
I mean, I still would have liked to have seen more pressure here from Psycho, but Kamikaze, first off the board. Takes about 1 minute and 15 seconds, but what a play from M-King, winning that fight with the Vector longer range than I think people anticipate it can go for. The Kamikaze was playing upstairs though, so at least it was through the floor, and that's going to be a pretty big component of Nip off the board. You're going to see the ADSs of Duds be far more valuable now.
Yeah, as you won't be able to clear them out as easily. Now, Ninjas in Pyjamas seemingly coming from the main lobby pretty heavily. Psycho going to deny a reinforcement onto the wall. M-King trying to give his team a slight advantage there, or possibly intact. Either way, it's not going to happen. Now, the reason they were trying to reinforce that, of course, is that the mirror window has been opened up, which means that whole wall now leaves BootKamp very exposed to this main lobby. It's likely the lobby attack was called thanks to PZD being able to open up that mirror window in the first place, since this is a late rotation in the round.
Yeah, and there's not a ton of time left. You're under a minute here. Smoke's going to go out. You don't need to worry about the ADS of the Jaeger at all, but Nip will need to designate somebody to flank watch. There it is. The smoke is all gone. This is a good position for a Glaz to be in, a great site for a Glaz to be able to pick away as you have to continuously cower from that smoke. For just a second there, the head of the Mira is spotted. Psycho unable to land his shots. M-King will walk away with a big amount of damage done to him, but he's going to down the Glaz amidst the smoke. Julio, the Montaigne, very low on HP as well, which means that it's just Wog left for Nip, who's upright. He's going to take some time to get Psycho back to half strength, and Julio will need to be the one to spearhead this attack. Paula's going to shred Psycho as it's just an absolute lockout, and M-King there as well. 8 consecutive rounds on defense, and BootKamp have woken up and are playing much better than they did through that first half. Open area is going to unlock again. We can see them go there, or we can see them go upstairs to CEO as well. Still match point for Nip, but you got to think that window's getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
It really is. M-King, the hero of BootKamp on defense, has really come alive on the on Mira specifically. Intact as well with the clutch he had earlier in the first defensive round for BootKamp. The two players to really keep BootKamp in this match. Open area going to be the site of choice. They are going to avoid CEO. Somewhat interesting because it was Ninjas in Pyjamas' first site as well as their preferred site. They did manage to go back to it a second time and manage to make it work, but not so here for BootKamp. Now, the last time they defended open area, they were actually soundly beaten, and then Intact clutched hard on Ninjas in Pyjamas. And this is the opportunity once more for Ninjas in Pyjamas to lock it out. If they can do what they did last time just as efficiently, and this time lock down Intact and then avoid the clutch that was so close, then yeah, and there you go, they win again.
You gotta think.
10 seconds left.
I feel like we've beaten this point in quite hard in this current time of Pro League, but Nip need wins. They need them in order to get out of this relegation spot. They need them desperately. They're up 5-0. You only have yourself to blame here if you are incapable of taking a single round on either side of the field. Yeah, we say that maps are defender-sided, we say that maps are attacker-sided, sure, but not 5-0, possibly twice defender or attacker-sided. No way. Usually, something will give at some point. And we are barreling towards a draw, as right now, BootKamp has just completely shaken off the rust and are playing so much better than we saw through those first 5 rounds.
We've seen this happen before, though. We've seen teams come alive in the second half after coming 4-1 or 5-0, and it almost never ends in a complete reverse sweep. It's super rare to happen. Paul is doing his best to make it happen, as he will get the first kill, and M-King manages to save Paula before Kamikaze can take out M-King. Duds is trying to double up on that, but Kamikaze finally finishes off Paula on those skylight stairs. Psycho takes out Duds. It looks like this is it right now. Ninjas in Pyjamas, because of that peek from Paula, will shut out 3 defenders in exchange for 2 attackers, and there's still so much time for the attack now to slowly push their way into the site.
Amazingly, open area tends to be one of the slowest played sites up there with CCTV because it requires the most forethought from a lot of teams here, and also requires excellent control above. You don't know how teams are going to play it. Are they going to keep presence upstairs? Are they going to keep presence in tellers, archives, lobby, skylight stairwell, up top inside of CEO? There's so many different facets to an open area defense that it usually requires a lot of precision to be able to clear it out fully. Nip right now looking to try to take control from above, but yeah, that was a very swift entry. Intact will dodge around a couple flashbangs that get dropped down. Those ADSs seemingly not operating at full capacity. He's going to guard inside a staff area, watching that hatch. up top inside of stock, but Boar not too far off, prone under the window where Psycho is playing. If the Zofia vaults, it'll be to his doom, but there's Kamikaze, sees the leg of Boar, and it's a 1v3, and make that a 0v3. Nip will pick up a win that they really badly needed, as they almost let that game slip away. A great entry, a misopportune peak from BootKamp Gaming, and that'll be Nip taking the game 6-3.
It all started with Paula, and then one by one, the rest of the defense of BootKamp peeked into Ninjas in Pyjamas by the skylight. Peeking the skylight in any capacity is incredibly dangerous. Pushing up the skylight stairs like that, you're asking to die. And he did manage to get the first kill. I'm not taking that away from him. But skylight usually on an open area take is the entire focus of the attackers. They're going to isolate skylight, they're going to push in, take the rest of the top floor, start opening the drop downs, and apply pressure to the site. The thing is, it wasn't necessarily Paula's fault that he peeked it, it was his fault that he lingered. He tried to go for a second kill, and then it was the rest of his teammates who doubled up on him, thinking that it was a fight that they could win, that ultimately cost BootKamp the round. They lost too much manpower.